Miss Spear here. I'm back with your daily dose of donkeys. I have Milo and Ollie here, and I've given them a little snack today. I know yesterday they were trying to snack on our book instead of their own hay, so they've got some hay going, so you'll see them pop around, but they're going to be snacking while we start our story today. You'll remember yesterday we left off in Runaway Ralph with a question that Ralph had. He had noticed that Garth seemed to be kind of sneaking around and doing a lot of things off on his own, and he wasn't sure. It almost seemed like there was something that the boy was doing wrong, and he couldn't quite figure it out. So today we'll check back in the craft shop, and we'll see what's happening with the kids there. That's funny, Ralph thought. The boy acts as if he's doing something wrong. After breakfast, Aunt Jill and several boys and girls straggled into the craft shop and settled down to make pictures by gluing dried rice, peas, beans, and corn to scraps of plywood. Mosaics, they called them. Such a waste of good food, thought Ralph, recalling some of the hard times he had gone through with his family back in the Mountain View Inn. Those campers were ruining enough food to keep a mouse family healthy for weeks. Before long, the mosaic makers discovered Ralph, who obliged them by racing on his wheel. Remember, he knows how to do the loop-de-loop now. Run as fast as he can and ride that wheel right on through. Hey, look at him loop the loop, said a boy named Pete. Isn't he darling? Cried a girl. Apparently, all the girls called mice there, at least the mice in cages, darling. Ralph could not resist showing off by looping the loop once more, and when many hands pushed bits of mosaics into his cage, he nibbled greedily. Kind of like these two today, nibbling greedily. At least there was no scrounging at Happy Acres Camp. The next time Garth slipped into the craft shop while everyone else was in the dining hall, Ralph gathered his courage to speak. Say, he began in a timid voice, but the boy must not have heard, because at that moment he began to sing uncertainly to himself. Little bunny boo boo, hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and banging them on the head. Ralph was stunned by Garth's words as he sang. What kind of boy would sing such a wicked song? Certainly not a boy that a mouse could trust. Frightened and disappointed, he scuttled to the farthest corner of his cage and turned his back. Down came the good fairy and she said, Garth continues, little bunny boo boo, I don't want to see you hopping through the forest, scooping up the field mice and bopping them on the head. Oh. As Ralph sat trembling in his corner, he listened and was puzzled. Garth, with obvious pleasure, was singing the same words the campers were singing in the dining hall, but the tune was a little different. When their voices went up, Garth's went down. When their voices went down, Garth's went up. Sometimes his voice did neither and wavered someplace in the middle. Ralph was bitterly disappointed by the whole turn of events. Garth was not interested in speed and motorcycles. He was interested in singing and banging field mice on the head. The hot summer days droned on. Ralph was supplied with more food than he could possibly eat, kind of like these two today. And his exercise wheel kept him trim. Whenever Catso, that cat, sneaked into the craft shop and showed an interest in Ralph's cage, someone snatched him and shoved him out the door. Life was safe, comfortable, and not unpleasant. From his cage near the window, Ralph had a good view of the camp. To the left, through the bamboo, he could see the boys' lodges. To the right were the girls' lodges. Before him lay the dining hall, the camp office, a trampoline, a swimming pool, and a circle of benches and old school desks in front of a platform that held a piano. Off to the right, beyond the shade of the walnut trees, a pasture shimmered in the summer heat. Counselors, who were college students, like the summer help at the Mountain View Inn, led the activities of the campers, and one counselor lived in each lodge with 8 or 10 campers. Ralph always found something interesting to watch. Campers spreading their sleeping bags out in the sun to air, counselors leading singing and directing skits around the campfire in the evening, boys racing to be the first in line when the bell was rung to announce meals, boys and girls in cowboy boots or English riding boots going off to the barn for riding lessons. Boys and girls played and kittens romped under the walnut trees. Cato discovered a small hole in the craft shop's rusty screen door, which he explored with a paw as if it were a mouse hole. But faithful old Sam always arrived to tell him to move along. Never once did Garf forget to care for Ralph, and when he was not singing in his strange voice, he sometimes spoke. "My little fellow," he would say, as he quickly detached the water bottle from the cage and refilled it at the sink. He even offered Ralph a sunflower seed with his fingers. Ralph was so lonely, he was tempted to accept the seed for the sake of friendship. But then he remembered that song he'd been singing about the mice and getting banged on the head, and he retreated to the corner of his cage. One afternoon, when Ralph was particularly lonely, he decided that a boy who fed a mouse 3 times a day, very responsibly, could not be so bad after all, and that the next time a sunflower seed was offered, he would venture out and accept it from the boy's fingers. However, when Garf finally came, he began to sing again. This time, the song was different from the one the campers were singing in the dining hall the last time. It provoked Ralph's curiosity because he had heard others sing it, but he hadn't quite been able to catch the words. The campers never sang the song when Aunt Jill was around, which made Ralph even more curious about the words. He was under the impression they were not fit for grown-up ears, which of course made the song all the more interesting. Uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't be listening. Garf sang and Ralph listened. Great green globs of greasy, grimy gopher guts, stimulated monkey feet, chopped up baby parakeet. Oh no, we thought the mouse song was back. That was enough for Ralph. In his haste to hide, he bumped into the spout of his water bottle and flooded one whole side of his cage. He found refuge behind a lettuce leaf where he sat trembling with nerves and fright while he refused to listen to another word of that fearsome song. Why, the next line might be about mice. Ralph stayed hidden behind the leaf for a long, long time. He was now certain that there was no hope for ever communicating with Garf. Chopped up baby parakeets? Garf actually relished those dreadful words. Then, one day, I think we'll find out what this chapter's named after all. Then one day, not long after Ralph had concluded that he was doomed to his loneliness in the cage, a freckle-faced girl wearing a baggy sweatshirt, shorts, and cowboy boots came into the craft shop carrying a cage at least 10 times the size of Ralph's cage. She set it on the table in the nature corner. Can you picture it, Ollie? Hi, Aunt Jill. I'm back. And here's Chum again. Remember, that's the name of this chapter? She announced, "I brought his box of food and a bag of cedar shavings." Aunt Jill dropped the strands of lanyard she was demonstrating to come and hug the girl. "Well, hi, Lana. Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Chum will have a friend this year. A mouse one of the boys caught in a butterfly net." She lifted the big cage up onto the shelf beside Ralph's cage. Ralph sat on his wheel to get a better look at the new occupant of the nature corner. A cranky-looking animal with tan and white fur. Maybe you can figure it out. Big cage, little animal, tan, white fur. Ralph, who had never seen such an animal, watched silently, while the creature, whatever it was, shoved and pushed and stomped at all the cedar shavings in his cage. He seemed to have some difficulty arranging them to his satisfaction. Next, he went through his food dish, picked out a number of small green pellets, and shoved them outside of his cage. The cedar shavings still did not please him, so he went back to shoving and pushing and stomping. From time to time, he paused to gnaw noisily at the bars of his cage with his long, curving teeth. Let me give you a sneak peek at what animal Chum might be. Poor Ralph, though, he's never seen such a thing. I didn't have those back at the Mountain View Inn. Finally, when the bell had rung and the campers had gone off for their noon meal, Ralph, in his eagerness for companionship, could no longer remain silent. Excuse me, what are you, anyway? He asked. Some kind of fancy gopher? The animal spat a green pellet out of his cage before he shot Ralph a withering look of scorn. Fancy gopher indeed, he sniffed. Well, Ralph faltered, I didn't know. You can't blame me for asking. I am a hamster, said the animal, a golden hamster. I am clean, I am odorless, and I am alert. You don't look gold to me, said Ralph. You look tan and hairy. At that response, the hamster turned his back on the mouse. Ralph nibbled at a kernel of corn before he made up his mind to try again. Pretty nice place we have here, huh? He remarked. Plenty of food and water, interesting things to watch. The hamster climbed on his exercise wheel and sat swinging to and fro while he stared at Ralph. When Chum remained silent, Ralph continued. It's safe from the cat, too. Chum appeared to never even blink his eyes. Maybe, he said. Ralph's whiskers trembled. That one word spoken by the hamster hinted at evils unknown to Ralph. Here was an animal who was wise in the ways of the world. Well, go on, thought Ralph impatiently. Tell me more. Chum was silent. Finally, Ralph was forced to say, how come that girl brought you here to Happy Acres? It's a very long story, said Chum. I'm not in any hurry, said Ralph. Go on. Chum spat a hull of sunflower seed into the bottom of his cage. I was 13, one of 13 hamsters, 6 girls and 7 boys, born in the back room of a pet store. 13? Ralph was awed. That's bigger than my litter. What was it like living in a pet store? We had a happy, carefree childhood there in the cage in the back room, Chum continued. There was plenty of food and water and fresh cedar shavings in the bottom of the cage. We slept all day, all 13 of us, in a warm and cozy heap. Then at night, as we grew older, we would play. Oh, the fun we had, those nights in the pet shop. Chum paused, a faraway look in his eyes. Go on, urged Ralph. Where was I, said Chum. Oh, yes, the frolics we had at night, and then... Chum's voice shook with emotion. Ralph waited quietly until the hamster was able to continue. One day, I was sound asleep in the corner of my cage. By then, we had grown a lot, and I was on the bottom of the heap, but I didn't feel squashed. I felt safe and cozy there, beneath my brothers and sisters. When suddenly... Chum stopped, unable to go on. Don't stop now, pleaded Ralph. What happened? A great human hand. A hand that smelled of... dog. Uh-oh, hopefully your dogs aren't listening. No offense, we promise. Ralph shuddered. Reached in and picked up several of my brothers and sisters. Let me tell you, that woke us all up in a hurry. We were terrified. We scrambled around trying to hide beneath our mother, under the wheel, in some cedar shavings, any place. I was slower than the rest because, you see, I was cramped from being slept on by my brothers and sisters. And so the hand, the terribly doggy hand, got me. It didn't matter. The hand got all us youngsters and turned us upside down in a most undignified fashion, and then we were put into 2 cages, boys in one and girls in another. What for? Asked Ralph. Don't rush me, said Chum, picking up a sunflower seed with his paws and cracking it open with his teeth. When he had eaten 3 kernels, he continued. Let me tell you, it was a terrible shock. Shortly after, the doggy hand picked up our cage and loaded us into what is called a car. I know. Ralph was eager to show off his knowledge. I used to see them in the parking lot outside the hotel. They were always full of children and luggage and sometimes a dog or 2. Chum ignored the interruption. We soon found ours was not the only cage to go into the car. Our sisters were loaded in beside us, along with a box of turtles, a cage of rather downhearted canary birds, and 2 large cages, one containing puppies and some other very silly kittens. Oh yes, a cage of white mice. White mice, said Ralph scornfully. Anybody, not just owls, could see white mice in the dark. Then the man with the doggy-smelling hands climbed into the front seat along with his wife, and we were off. Where to? Asked Ralph. The county fair, answered Chum, and it was a terrible trip. Kittens meowed, puppies whimpered, turtles scrabbled around in their box. What's county fair? Interrupted Ralph. A noisy place, said Chum. It's full of people yelling and children laughing and shrieking, machinery that whirls and spins and plays music, all sorts of animals that neigh and moo and baa. It was a hot and dusty time, and our cages were set in a booth. By that time, we hamsters were exhausted. It had been light for several hours, and we hadn't had a wink of sleep. I know what you mean, Ralph continued with that feeling. That was only the beginning, continued Chum. A steady stream of people, mostly children, passed our cages. Big, little, most of them sticky, and all of them noisy. Look, Mommy, look, Daddy, look at the darling little hamsters. I want one. Daddy, buy me a hamster. All morning long. Parents were better. Don't be silly. Of course you can't have a hamster. You didn't take care of the last hamster you had. Uh-oh. Come along. We don't have time to look at hamsters. Then, a whole busload of children, all of them wearing white t-shirts with letters across the front. Camp t-shirts, interrupted Ralph knowledgeably, from Happy Acres, came crowding around the booth. They didn't have any parents with them, so they all bought pets. You? Asked Chum. Me, said Chum. I was bought by that grubby girl with freckles. To make a long story short, the doggy hands stuffed me into a hot little cardboard box with a few so-called air holes poked into them, and I spent the rest of the day being jounced and bounced around, peeked at, and fed bits of caramel corn. Sounds pretty good, said Ralph. Maybe to a mouse. There was a touch of scorn in Chum's voice. Now I'm going to stop us there and we'll find out more about how Chum came to be at Happy Acres Camp with Lana, and we'll see how this friendship works out between the two of them. For now, I'll leave you hanging there though. Keep up the great work in our Google Classroom, and we'll continue adding some new surprises. It's been really fun getting a chance to see you all and see the hard work you've been doing, so keep it up. Onward and upward, my friends.